Hello, I am Moe Thuzar. I am a research fellow at the ISEAS-Yusof Ishak Institute, which was formerly known as the Institute for Southeast Asian Studies in Singapore. I am from Myanmar. At ISEAS, I am co-coordinator of the Myanmar Studies program. For the past year, I have been at the Macmillan Center at Yale University as a Fox International Fellow for the 2019-2020 academic year. I come from a family of civil servants and diplomats, if you could call it that. My grandfather was in the cabinet of Prime Minister U Nu during the days of the AFPFL government, and that was in the years immediately following independence, right up to the coup by Ne Win in 1962. So, of course, I wasn't around then, but I've always grown up with this sense of awareness of that generational link, so to speak. My grandfather was also part of the independence struggle. So most of the politicians, the first generation politicians of independent Burma in those years were his contemporaries. And it's something that he had handed down to his son-in-law, my father, who joined the Myanmar Foreign Service, or I should say the Burmese Foreign Service at the time, in the late 1950s, and served across the three political eras of Burma, later Myanmar, from the parliamentary democracy era to the socialist era, and under the military regime that took power after the coup of 1988. July the 19th is commemorated as Martyrs' Day, and there is a mausoleum dedicated to the fallen heroes from that fateful day in 1947. So this is, I think, something that every child in Myanmar grows up with, understanding what happened for the price of independence. Of course, the narrative, the history that is assigned, put into textbooks highlights the tragic circumstances and assigns the blame to people who were, how shall I put it, who were power hungry, who were elements working for colonial interests and all of that. But the fact remains that we are all very much aware of the sacrifices that were made for the sake of Burma gaining independence, which it did in 1948. Another point of history when we talk about General Aung San and 1947 is also the efforts that he made to bring Burma as a union together towards independence. There will be mention of the Panglong Conference that people may have heard of in present days. And the conference that was held at Panglong by General Aung San in 1947 was an effort to get the agreement of several of the leaders of Burma's ethnic minority groups to petition together for independence together with the Burma majority. Grandfather, as I mentioned, was a politician. He was also part of the independence movement, as most of the young men were in those days. And because he was ethnically Chinese, he Burmanized himself. He took on a Burmese name, and he essentially wanted to show that his blood was as red as the Burma counterparts and compatriots, all fighting together for the same cause. So in the post-independence era of parliamentary democracy, when Prime Minister U Nu set up his cabinet, grandfather was part of that cabinet, and he was also one of the survivors of the split in the AFPFL government, and he stayed on in Prime Minister U Nu's government after that internal party split happened. So that was, I guess, the life of a politician in the days of parliamentary democracy. My mother recalls memories of campaigning for elections. And so the Burmese way to socialism led to nationalization of a lot of the businesses and private sector activity as we know it today. So all of that was nationalized, and most of the economic activity that had been keeping the economy circulating were in the hands of people who were either ethnically Chinese or from India, people who were of ethnic Indian origin. And so when they had to return to their home countries, so to speak, there was a lot of displacement, and it was a sad time all around, I think, for communities, for families who had been operating as businesses in the country to have to uproot themselves and leave. But that was, I think, the first feature of a socialist economy. Everything was nationalized. Everything, of course, was taken over by the central command of the state. Life like in Burma under socialist rule. The socialist economy meant that, of course, everything had some kind of ration, and there was, I think, a very clear difference between what constituted a bit of a luxury as compared to what was an everyday necessity.